Hi everyone, welcome to our first sit down talk video of 2019. This is something that I've really wanted to talk about pretty much since I started my channel. This name of this video and everything I've had written down in a notebook for ages, and that's because it is kind of my motto when it comes to doll collecting and life. On my Flickr I have this quote, and I think I might even have it on my YouTube bio, I'm not sure. But it says that being happy doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you decided to see beyond the imperfections. And for me, I started to realize the message of that quote in my doll collection, and I was able to apply that to the rest of my life, and it made me a much happier, more fulfilled person. And that was one of my main motivators in starting a YouTube channel and in sharing really personal things on my Flickr. Especially in the doll collecting community, we tend to hold our dolls to this kind of ridiculous standard, and I feel like that takes the joy out of the hobby.
Right, I remember back when we were really into talking about Disney on your first Flickr, a lot of people would complain that none of the dolls were movie accurate enough, and then they customized each one so that they were more movie accurate, but at the end of the day all the dolls looked the same because they were all movie accurate. I think that, when you find that perfect one doll that meets all your needs, it's not as fun as having a bunch of different dolls that you like something different about each one, because they all have something to offer.
It's okay to have preferences in life when it comes to doll collecting, when it comes to non-doll collecting things. But I think what happens is that people live with expectations, and those expectations are the thief of joy. That's another quote I've heard before, that when you place all these expectations on people, on situations, on your dolls, you end up robbing yourself of just living in that moment and accepting things for what they are. And for me, I've mentioned on this channel a lot that I probably have OCD, and a lot of people think it's cute and funny, oh, I'm OCD about dolls all being perfect and this and that, but I don't think they realize that when I say I think I have it, I mean all facets of my life, and it's not just perfectionism. It's that obsessive over-analyzing constantly. Since I was a little kid, my parents thought something was weird about me when I was 2 or 3 years old, and obsessively cleaning my room. I refused to eat foods I didn't want to eat. Remember when they took me in the pool and for the first time, and I screamed my head off? I had separation anxiety. I needed control over everything all the time, and the need for perfection was one of the ways it exacerbated, and I spent so much time redoing things, whether it was playing a video game level 1,000,000 times because I needed every ring on Sonic the Hedgehog but I couldn't die, or I would spend hours upon hours rewriting school notes I didn't need, or even with myself. I was 6 years old and thought I had yellow teeth, 7 years old and thought I had huge fat thighs, 9 years old and I noticed the natural purple discoloration under my eyes. When you live that way and you're constantly processing things like that all the time and nothing is ever good enough for you, it's completely miserable. And I'm an extreme case of that.
She scrubbed her pretty baby doll with a Brillo pad. She balded her favorite Jasmine doll.
And I did that after Dad died. I started washing things 4 times, things that were brand new that didn't even need to be washed. And I'd sit there and part of why I don't color my hair a lot and why I don't wear makeup and why I don't really put a lot of effort in my appearance is because when I used to do that, I would literally sit there and pick it apart. It'd be oh, my hair is not the exact right color, throw some more bleach on it, and I don't want to have no teeth from over whitening or bald myself from putting too much chemical on. And that's the thing, I'm an extreme case, so for me it gets out of control really fast, and we always have this joke that if I had been able to get plastic surgery as a teenager, I would have ended up looking like Michael Jackson. And I think that you can take that though and realize that when you get over obsessed in things being a certain way, it can get out of control like that, even if you're not an extreme person like me.
No, because back in 2012, perseverating on all the new dolls you would get at the store and think they weren't good enough because the body was different than what you grew up with, or you didn't like the hair, and instead of appreciating what it was for what it was and just enjoying the ride, you kind of didn't enjoy it. And I feel now as we've gotten older, we kind of just enjoy things for what they are, because everything has a good side, and I think you need to like look at it and embrace it. And I think that what a lot of doll collectors do instead is, instead of focusing on what they like, they look at what's wrong with it. Like the minute they get it out of the box, like, oh.
I think a lot of people, and this bothers me more than anything else, and I'm guilty of this in the past, before a doll is even out, before there's even like official promo pictures, people will have to have an opinion on it, and it becomes this elitist mindset. And that's one of the things that I'm very like against on this channel, is that elitist mindset. And I think for a lot of people, this what's better and what's worse and old is better than new and this is cheap quality, a lot of that comes from like this superiority complex of, if I'm more opinionated, then that makes me a better collector.
And in college, like, I wasn't collecting dolls in college, but I always tell my opinion, whether it was really important or not. So I wasted a lot of time telling people why I didn't like Taylor Swift, when at the end of the day, is that really important? Does that really affect your life, whether or not you like Taylor Swift? No! One of my college professors was like a mentor to me, and one night when I was spouting my opinion about what was wrong with like the way that they were teaching like the philosophy of education in college, I offended someone without meaning to. And she kind of somehow nailed it into my head that I had to think about how I was making other people feel, which over the years I translated to how I wanted people to perceive me, and I realized that I don't care as much if people see me as intellectual or opinionated or unique as I do that they see me as kind. And the first thing other people see when they talk to me is that I'm a kind person, that's more important than my opinion. And I think that at the end of the day, people focus too much on having an opinion because they think it makes them look more enlightened.
Right, and that translates to doll collecting. And I think for me, I have very polarizing aspects of my personality. I think that probably having OCD, a lot of what I do is unfortunately controlled by like anxious compulsions. But I think that without that, like underneath all that, I'm actually a pretty impulsive person. I tend to be really open-minded. I tend not to have an opinion on everything, because back before I was like extreme, when I was a kid, I was just like, I almost want to get a pixie cut randomly today. You know, I would be very like on the moment with things, and I always wanted to try the new dolls, and I didn't need to have an opinion on everything. But I think because of when I got back into dolls, especially when I first started uploading to Flickr on my really old account, there were so many people that had opinions that I felt like I wasn't a true collector because I didn't have an opinion on every little thing. And because my dad had just passed away, and I was already scrutinizing my dolls and myself under this microscope, it was so easy to fall into that trap of constantly needing to have an opinion on everything. Me, when people come to this channel, I don't want them to think like, oh wow, she has a big collection, or oh wow, you know, she's unique. I want people to see the love of this hobby. I want people to see how much this can enrich your life, that it's not just this like materialistic thing that's about how much you have, that you can have one doll or you can have 10,000 dolls.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether you're into the new dolls or into the old dolls or into whatever doll you happen to find that day. And I think that too many people get hung up on how important someone's opinion is on like the curvy Barbies, 2018 Bratz,
Forever Molly. And everything is temporary. Nothing is forever. And if you get so hung up on fixating on one time in your life, one decade of dolls, one this and that, to the point where you can't allow yourself to enjoy anything outside that box, you are cutting yourself off from personal growth and from growing as a collector and having more fun. And that's not to say that you can't like have a focus in your collection, or that you can't, you know, we don't all have it in limitless space. I understand that for some people they can't have duplicates, or maybe they can only collect brats. I learned from like my experiences with actually like losing people. When my mom passed away, I clung on to that time in my life that my mom was alive. Like nothing could hold a candle to that. I grieved the loss of my mom like every day until my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer when I was 18. So from like the ages of like 11 to 18, that was like a weight on my shoulder, and I constantly lived in the past.
I wasted 7 wonderful years where your dad was healthy and we could have been happy.
That I wanted after he passed away is I would have given anything. I would have given my soul to have one more day after mom died, riding around in dad's pickup, on a Friday or Saturday night on our pizza and KB toy doll runs. Like that was what, suddenly I felt nostalgic for that time, and I realized in that moment that you can't hold on to the past forever, that you have to let go. And you will always have those memories and you will always have like that feeling, but you can't live your life looking back or live your life looking too much forward and being obsessed with like this image of your perfect future, because life is just going to happen and you don't really have control over everything in it. So you have to go with the flow and leave the past in the past and live in the moment. And so for me, I really translate that into dolls too, that I'm of course nostalgic for the dolls I grew up with. Of course they'll always have a special place in my heart. But you know, the dolls that we first saw in stores and I was buying when I got back into collecting in 2011 mean even more to me. And yet at the same point, after Dad passed away, Monster High dolls weren't even something I thought about collecting when Dad was around. And now I'm very nostalgic for them because that was something Colleen and I did the year after Dad passed away to cope with losing him. And now those are discontinued. It's always moving and always constantly changing, and sometimes you have to let go of something to gain something. It's awful and tragic when like you lose someone, but I think of all the things that I've gained from that too, that I feel like I'm a better person. I feel like my priorities in life are more in line because I can see the big picture from experiencing a lot of loss. It makes me more compassionate because I feel for people and situations, and I've learned that like let people live their lives and do their thing, and there's not one, it's not black and white, there's shades of gray, there's no one way to do things, it's not all good and bad and right and wrong, that everything is kind of blurry, and that's okay, and that we're all different. And I've also realized that like we wouldn't have the same relationship with our Auntie Kim and Uncle David, or our friend Lisa and her parents, or our friend Beth. Like these are all people that came into our lives and we have certain relationships with them because like our parents passed away and things fall apart. Sometimes things fall apart so things can fall together, and it's all connected. So when you make a blanket statement of old dolls are all good and new dolls are all bad, it's funny because it's like 10 years ago people said the same thing, but now like, oh, Bratz dolls are good when back then they were bad, or you know, do you see what I'm saying?
If nothing else, take away this, that as a doll collector, it's not like in real life where you can't take a time machine and go back. It's like you can have your 90s Barbies and your 2018 Bratz. You can have both at the same time. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too.
That's the beautiful thing about it.
Right, that's like we still have 90s Barbies. We can go out and buy more 90s Barbies.
We can have Barbies that we couldn't have even had as kids. When you focus on all the things you don't like about your dolls, it takes away the fun from it. And like I said, it's okay to have opinions. Like I don't really like dolls with molded clothes a lot. I have plenty of them, but it's not my favorite. Like it's disappointing. I don't like generic packaging on dolls and like lots of recycled facial screenings because it kind of takes away the fun of like them being different. But I have a lot of dolls like that and I love them all the same. And like when I got my Bubble Bath Surprise Moxie girls, they're just these like really cheap Moxie girls with glittery molded bodices that are kind of babyish. Wouldn't you know they're some of my favorite ones, because that's when I got really into making earrings and hair pieces for my dolls. And just like putting that extra time and love into them, it made me really see that I had that power to make something that maybe isn't so great and such great wonderful quality into something beautiful. And you can do that too. The grass is always greener to other people on the other side. I constantly get comments of people like idolizing my collection, and not to sound vain, but like people think they're all perfect, or like when we did our house tour, people will have this like magical view of like your life and like you must be rich and oh wow, you're so lucky, and they don't realize like that there are tons of dolls with flaws that you just aren't seeing because they're on camera. Or like our house, like lots of rotting doors, really bad plumbing, flooring. There's
a lot of plumbing fixtures in this house we can't even use, but you wouldn't know that.
Right, and it's all about like what you choose to focus on. And you know, something I've learned is the grass is greenest where you water it. And if you take the time to see the things in your dolls that you like, instead of comparing them to this ideal standard, then you'll be happier. And, like
and you pour the love into it.
It's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to like things more than others, or decide that, you know, maybe that's not for me. Like, far too often, I see people they can't be happy. Every time they buy something, they find something wrong with it. They return things all the time. They constantly like shuffle things in and out of their collection, and it's like they're constantly looking for something they're never gonna find. And I think that can get out of control and spill into your real life. Like these people who are look for like the perfect relationship. You have to love people and your dolls for what they are. People are people. Like I'm moody and I'm really anal about how things are. You know, I'm bossy.
I'm messy. I'm ditzy. I'm klutzy. I talk too much and don't listen half as much as I talk. What else is wrong with me?
But you know, I wouldn't change your hair on Colgate's head.
And I wouldn't change her. Although it would be nice if you didn't nag me every time I got like a little bit of water on the stove.
It'd be nice if you didn't make the mess in the first place.
Well, we're just gonna.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to come to terms with there is no such thing as like the perfect man. Or
There's
the
no such
perfect
thing
life.
as perfect. Nothing is perfect.
And you're only lying to yourself if you think that it's perfectly imperfect. And I think that's what I love about collecting secondhand dolls, is that they're kind of all flawed in their own way, because they have like, you know, they're battered, they have battle scars. Maybe they're missing hair, maybe their hair is in really bad shape, their face paint is chipped, their body is loose, they're missing their original outfit. But it's like the love and creativity you have to put into them to like revive them and give them new life is what makes it so much fun. It actually has a really good quote.
I was gonna say, this leads in really nicely to the quote. So the backstory about this quote is, it's from a book. And one of the side conflicts in the book, there's this girl staying with her aunt over the summer, and the aunt collects secondhand items for her home, much like we collect secondhand dolls. But it'll be like an alarm clock that doesn't fully work, and like things you have to like press like exactly 3 times, like things that are like broken to some capacity, but they're working. So it says, perfect is a lot to expect from something, right? We all have our faults. It's not about us, I said gently. It's a toaster. It doesn't matter. She sat back in her chair. If something doesn't work exactly right, or maybe needs some special treatment, you don't just throw it away. Everything can't be fully operational all the time. Sometimes we need to have the patience to give something little nudge it needs. And that quote comes from a book called Keeping the Moon by Sarah Dessen. And I like that quote because it's exactly what we're saying, that, you know, nothing is perfect and you have to take it for what it is, and sometimes that means giving it a boost to make it like that much nicer, like what she did with those Bubble Bath surprise dolls. And I think that's what not just doll collecting, but what life is about, that you have to take, everything has a good and a bad, and you have to just take the good where you see it.
It's really about the ride, it's about the experience, it's about how it makes you feel, and not about everything being a certain way. And you know, I just see it too much of people hyper-focusing on these like tiny insignificant details. And it's like, but why do you collect dolls? Why do you do this and that in your life? And you know, keep your eyes on the whole picture, not just that small detail. And honestly, it made me so much happier of a person. And that's what I try to share all the time when we make videos on this channel, when I make posts about Flickr. I always make fun of my dolls for having flaws, like American Girls with wonky eyes, and you know, the dolls with squeaky limbs.
And that Holiday Jade who has one eye that's like way bigger than the other.
Yeah, I mean, I point it out because I still love them, and I hope that in a subtle way that might rub off on other people and make them see that, like, hey, her dolls aren't perfect, they all have their quirks. You know, I threw this doll aside, but maybe she's worth something. Maybe I can give her some love. Because what happens, like, when all of your to-do list is done and all your dolls are exactly the way they're supposed to be, and you have all these accomplishments in life, what's there to do? And I think that it's easy to lose sight of that and to like want this goal, not realizing that it kind of sucks the fun out of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And just remember that perfection is deception, that there's no such thing, and let go of that and you'll be a lot happier.
And to just take the good for what it is.
So until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.